Hello and welcome to the Kongverastion. I'm Hyle Russell.
I'm Cameron Reigle.
And I'm Dustin Jackson.
Welcome, my friends, my compatriots, to Stinky Ape Summer 2024. Woo!
Ew.
Yeah, it's going to take a while to build up enthusiasm for this concept. I realize I'm like, yeah, it's this thing that is not a thing. But get excited for the thing. As I've explained, E3 is dead. It's not coming back.
That's okay.
And, well, it's sad because so much of DK Vine's calendar, our culture, really revolved around E3 as kind of like the high point of the year. And there are numerous pretenders to the E3 throne, including, what was that thing today? The Summer Game Slam with Keira Knightley.
Summer
what was
Game
it?
Fest?
I'll take your word for it. But there's no universal branding to any of this nonsense, right? Not like it used to be. It's just all E3, all under that umbrella. Everybody come to E3's yard. And now it's just all these disparate streams and everybody's vying for attention and everybody's doing their own thing. And the thing is about all of that, like, yeah, you've got the you got the Game Slam, you got the games party. And that's the big one, I guess, but there's nothing there that really pertains to DK Vine's interest, at least our editorial interest. And that is Donkey Kong, that is Rare, and that is Platonic. And we have used the Stinky Ape Summer name for our conversations across the past 2 years. So with E3 officially dusted in 2024, I thought, why not turn Stinky Ape Summer into a bigger affair? Something we can refer to when we talk about the summer game announcement season without parsing out all of this nonsense and really playing to somebody else's brand when it's our brand that I care about. I don't care about what they're doing. So the thing about that is we don't have to just make it a week or whenever Xbox does their thing to whenever Nintendo does their thing. We can make it the entire month of June. We can make it July. We can make it August. We can make it early September. A calendar season-long celebration of the DKU that merely begins with the game announcements and then just goes from there. And we're kicking it off with a live episode in our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/DKVine. Hello to everyone in the chat right now. We got Freezer, we've got Plastasm, we got Days of Matt, we've got Professor Turquoise, we've got Square Mango, and Frimpies is also here. I'll be checking in with the live stream as we go, obviously. But we've got...
What up, everybody?
We've got new... Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. We actually have news already to discuss. I scheduled the Stinky Ape Summer Kickoff for Friday. But Thursday, what might be the biggest news of the summer pertaining to DK Vine broke. So we will be getting into that on this episode. Do not worry. Do not worry. So before we launch into it, because we are approaching an ad on Twitch, and I like the monies. I'm a miser. I like to roll in my vault of pennies that Twitch gives us.
We have to embrace a site that's not actively sabotaging paying us.
So to do that, I'm going to promote the site that is actively sabotaging our payments right now. Because it is Stinky Ape Summer, and today we have launched the Stinky Ape Summer merchandise. That's right. If you go to dkvine.com/merchandise, you can finally get, and believe it or not, we had people request this. the past
I
2
don't
years.
believe that. That's wild.
Well, the past year, because it's been
I could
one.
believe person.
It's been one Stinky Ape summer since we've had a merchandise store, and I thought this year, I'll spruce up the logo a bit, put it on a t-shirt. So we have the Stinky Ape summer shirt and tank top right now at dkvine.com/merchandise. But wait, we haven't forgotten our friends south of the equator, of which there are plenty, because everybody uses the summer branding for this kind of thing. And that's not fair to everybody on the lower half of the globe, because it's winter there. And so Freezer pointed this out the other week here on the Kongverastion. She dug up the name I spouted off the first time I used the Stinky Ape summer branding. And so we also have the well-groomed New World Monkey winter shirt and sweatshirt available in our merchandise store. So you got a tank top for the summer one, you got a sweatshirt option for the winter one. And we've also launched hats. That's right.
No way.
We're a haberdashery now, because we have baseball caps. We have the DK Vine logo throughout the years. The original style, the like moldy cheese style, the neon style, the modern day one, the Sea of Thieves variant, the Yooka-Replaylee variant, and Stinky Ape summer and well-groomed New World Monkey winter hats for you to peruse at dkvine.com/merchandise. So, dress for the season, wherever you are, whatever season it might actually be. We've got your back, or we've got your head here at DK Vine. And
dress for the job you want.
That's right. And what I want, Dustin, I want DKU announcements out the old wazoo. I want to be drowning in them from my ass on up. And we're off to a good start, I have to admit. Anyway, Frimpies in a live stream says, could you imagine wearing that in public and trying to explain to people what it means? I feel like that's applicable to most of what we have in our merchandise store. There's not much.
I think it speaks for itself.
There's not much that's universal there. I think the one that's the Kong College one is the one you could probably wear in public, and somebody might get it, but even if they don't get it, they think you're just wearing a university shirt if they're not paying attention. And I think
pretend to be normal.
Right, there's the one that's covered with turtle spunk. It's probably going to go over most people's heads, so to speak.
Have I got a story for you?
the Bazo one. What the hell is that? Yeah. Days of Matt says, as a below the equator guy, I'm jubilated for well-groomed New World Monkey winter. I can't say it. Because talking about things you can't say, there's going to be a game we're going to be talking about that's going to be very hard to spit out, to enunciate. So
those are the best kinds, they say.
So we're back from the ad. So before we get started, though, I would like to say that I did go on my annual bear hike this morning. I got up the crack of dawn. I drove up into the mountains, hiked said mountain, looking for our bear friends to wish us a good game announcement season. Used to be E3 bear hike, now it's the Stinky Ape summer bear hike. But sadly, I could find no discernible trace of bears, which meant I couldn't even track them. So, like, in past years, I've, found bear droppings, or clearly where a bear has rubbed against a tree trunk or has laid in the grass, and I could maybe explore the area looking for a bear. No sign of any bear this morning. I had a lovely time. It was a lovely, crisp morning in the mountain forest and the squirrels were frolicking. I saw some fawns grazing in meadows. I mean, it was an enchanting time, but alas, no bear. But I guess if I did find a bear, it would just be a bear I had already seen some previous year, given the way this Stinky Ape summer is panning out. And let's just
what
launch.
you should have done, Hyle?
Yeah.
You should have put up some signs that say bear this way, and then it would have led right to a bear.
See, Dustin, I think you get all of your like animal tracking advice from Looney Tunes or whatever.
Yeah.
Yogi Bear,
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, but I don't think that would work. But I'll keep it in mind. I'll think about it for next year.
Good.
Now, let's get right into it. Let's get into Playtonic. Now, we already got our big Playtonic reveal for Stinky Ape Summer. It was announced during Thursday's Guerrilla Collective showcase, a stream of a lot of indie games. I actually found this stream really refreshing. There wasn't a lot of bullshit preening from the host. It was just, hey, how's it going? This is Guerrilla Collective. Here's trailer after trailer after trailer after trailer. I liked it. But I kind of tuned out a little bit after the second trailer because that's what I tuned in for. And it was Playtonic's big reveal, their first in-house reveal in 5 years. It was 5 years ago today that Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair was revealed. And those of us who'd been reading the tea leaves, studying Playtonic, their social media output, how they're clearly gearing up for something, I was like, well, okay. And then it was clear that it was going to be during the Guerrilla Collective because Playtonic tweeted about it, and sure, it could have been a Playtonic Friends title, but then Playtonic's Daily started really aggressively hinting on social media, and I was like, all right, well, this is it. And so we all tuned in, or at least all of us at DK Vine tuned in. And yeah, the Playtonic logo, the new Playtonic logo, it takes some time getting used to seeing this in like a trailer, but started up. So I was like, all right, here it is. And it was Yooka-Laylee. Again.
My God.
It was actually, you saw the shot of the batship crazy, and then it did the wipe to a far more lovely shot of the batship crazy to reveal Yooka-Replaylee, the remastered and enhanced version of Yooka-Laylee. Now, I love this. I do. And I know people are probably out there thinking, well, of course, you're not going to be negative about this, Hyle. You're a shill at worst, and you're an optimist at best. And
those aren't bad things to be. At least the optimist part.
I was going to say, the shill part is not the greatest thing, but
maybe.
So I have to admit, I will be upfront about this. I was hoping it was going to be a 1-2 punch. I was thinking back to, speaking of replaying, I was thinking back to E3 2015 when Rare showed off Rare Replay and then launched into the Sea of Thieves trailer. It's like, here's this celebration of the past, here's what's coming in the future. And so I was really hoping it was going to be Yooka-Replaylee followed up with a little tease of Tuka-Laylee. And we did get something of a tease, but nothing that extravagant. And that being said, it has been half a decade. I'm thirsty. I am so dehydrated for a new DKU game, or even an old DKU game with new bells and whistles. And I will gladly embrace this for what it is. And I think it looks terrific. Cameron, you and we were just talking about Conquer Live and Reloaded at E3 2004 and how just visually impressive the game looked and how it was so much fun, like comparing it to Bad Fur Day, which was just 3 years before. But I'm getting kind of the same vibes with this, just looking at the screenshots, watching the footage, and just thinking like, wow, I can't believe how great this game now looks.
The Fuzzy Laylee really gives those similar vibes.
Love me.
Just like Shaggy Conker. It
looks
good.
Yeah, no, okay, so there's so much to discuss
better than
here.
it did for Conker.
Yes, it does, because they didn't go overboard with it. That's the important part.
Right.
Like, it's not the Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, we're going to stick you under a blow dryer for 3 hours look. Which Conker also had. Yeah, Conker also had in Live and Reloaded. This is a little bit more restrained with the furry shenanigans. And yeah, so let's just get into what it is for those who are coming into this cold, who haven't been following the news, because maybe you've been tuned out. It's funny because, I did a big article about this yesterday. I did a lot on social media about it, but people are still rolling in today and being like, wait, a Yooka-Laylee remaster? What? Like, because they weren't primed for it, because again, without the structure of E3, it's kind of hard to keep up. And Yooka-Replaylee, and we'll talk about the pun here in just a bit. As I said, it was shown off at the Guerrilla Collective during its stream, and it is a remastered and enhanced version of 2017's Yooka-Laylee. And it is it's actually going to be self-published by Playtonic. Team 17,
awesome.
Team 17 isn't publishing this time. It's being done through the Playtonic Friends label, their own publishing label, which I figured was going to be the case, but it's still really, really cool to see them. Like, no qualms with Team 17 per se. It's just cool to see how independent Playtonic already is with their third release,
Right.
So
taking their first game, and they're able to re-release it under their own selves.
Right. Yeah. And as the press release stated, it marks the culmination of almost 10 years of Playtonic being in existence. Of course, Playtonic.
Ooh,
yeah,
that's a long time.
Next year. I mean, remember we had Chris Sutherland on season 3 of the Kongverastion for that interview shortly after Playtonic's founding, and here it is, season 12 of the Kongverastion. But the press release really emphasizes that they have experience now, like more experience than just what they had coming into Playtonic cold. And they're going to take that experience, the things we have learned while working on other projects, as well as the feedback we have taken on board since the original release. And they're basically going to George Lucas the original Yooka-Laylee and fix the things that were the most irksome, quibblesome. I don't know how you want to parse this out, but quarrelsome. Yes.
That's good, right?
Yes. The things that people raise an eyebrow at as if they were Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson smelling what he himself is cooking. And they're saying, you know what? We released this second game, Yooka-Laylee and Impossible Lair, and it's universally acclaimed. I think that's fair to say, right? I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. Yeah, when I say, like, everybody
who knows about it, yes.
Everybody who knows, yes, and that's the important part, Cameron. Everybody who knows about Yooka-Laylee Impossible Lair thinks it's one of the greatest 2D platformers of all time. Maybe that's me overstating it, but I definitely agree with that. As a Donkey Kong Country fanatic, Yooka-Laylee and Impossible Lair is one of my all-time favorite games. My top 10 list. It's tied with Tropical Freeze, and I honestly can't decide which I like better.
I think Tropical Freeze is overall better, but I think Impossible Lair is more impressive given it's probably a smaller team, smaller budget, and they came that close to being almost as good.
For sure. Just I'm kind of blown away by how much Impossible Lair punches above its own weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the live stream, John Tessier, the JT review, says, never played Impossible Lair, but I've heard nothing but praise for it. Do you like Donkey Kong Country? And I'm pretty sure you do if you're in the Kongverastion live stream. And I've talked with you here on the Kongverastion before. I know you do. Give Impossible Lair a chance, because it is like, we're just going to talk about Impossible Lair now. It's a Spotlight, Yooka-Laylee, and Impossible Lair. Surprise, everyone.
Surprise.
No, it's honestly, it feels like, and I feel bad almost praising it because I always feel like I have to compare it to Tropical Freeze, and I love Tropical Freeze, but it feels like it's a tangent timeline. It feels like, what if Rare alum, as well as the people who would maybe like plausibly join this team, made a Donkey Kong Country game shortly after Donkey Kong Country 3? What direction would it have gone? And it really does feel like Yooka-Laylee Impossible Lair builds on where Rare left off in 1996. And it takes inspirations from other places, but so did the original trilogy as well. That's what's key. And it's like the best of Donkey Kong Country. It's the best of Super Mario World. It's got a little bit of Tropical Freeze maybe in there and Returns, but it really is just this huge, bold statement. And Dustin, you talked about the size of the team. Playtonic's just an indie studio. Just like, I don't want to sell it short, but they don't have the budget, the operating budget, especially when they had Impossible Lair in the works, compared to what Nintendo was able to afford retro. And they were able to punch above their weight class so far. I think they did with the original Yooka-Laylee as well, but the original Yooka-Laylee had flaws aplenty. I like it despite its flaws, but it was flawed. Impossible Lair is nearly flawless.
I agree with that.
I also appreciate that it kind of, like I always say, it served me like it gave me things that I didn't know I felt like I was missing with Tropical Freeze, and that's not to say that, like, I think that's not me, like, taking pot shots at Tropical Freeze. What I'm saying is I appreciate that there's space for both of these games to exist, because, like, I've complained about with other genres, like, say, well, if you like Mario Kart but wish Mario Kart was doing something different, slim pickings.
Yeah.
But it's really nice that we have these two flavors of platformer adjacent to the original DKC trilogy, fulfilling different needs.
Yeah.
But also just maintaining the core appeal to a fan of those games.
Yeah.
Totally.
In a live stream, Frimpy's points out Impossible Lair did a lot of creative stuff. It didn't just pull from other platformers. The whole aspect of having a level, then being able to change the idea for the same level to make a new level, basically. That's
very cool.
A huge thing. It really played with the idea of the tomes of Yooka-Laylee in a way that justified the concept and really got creative with how you could go back into the same level but have it be completely different. And there were really fun, inventive, very like vintage Rare like ideas in the humor and potentially the dark humor therein. And of course I'm thinking about your level, Cameron, the level your B was in.
I love that level, and obviously I'm biased there, but I think that's another one of those examples of the game really punching above its own weight, because it is the altered level states. I feel like is like partly a way to reuse assets, but it is such a smart, clever, fulfilling way to do that.
Absolutely. And, like, the thing I've always said about Donkey Kong Country 3, and before Returns, what I wanted if they ever did a Donkey Kong Country 4, was expand on where you left off with 3. And I felt like the overworld, Freezer, of course, points out there's some Saberwolf influence there as well, but the overworld felt like, okay, well, we have this like idea of making the overworld, the map screen in the case of DKC3, more involved. It was still very rudimentary, but, the effort was there, and it was appreciated. And Impossible Lair just ran with it, and just like, let's just make that a top-down experience. And, oh, God, I mean, we're going to have to table the Impossible Lair discussion here, everyone, because we could just go all night, and we would never even get to Yooka-Replaylee. Suffice to say, this is all just in service of building up to Yooka-Replaylee, but Impossible Lair was a masterpiece. And the problem was it was a masterpiece that everybody slept on. Not everybody. It was the DK Vine audience and the most hardcore, devoted people who were still following Platonic. But the general gaming world just ignored it. The most common refrain was thinking it was Yooka-Laylee DLC and not realizing it was a completely separate game, completely separate genre, and it kind of heartbreaking, right? Like, I wanted such great things for the game, and of course it's still available. You can it's not like it can't take off tomorrow, and
regularly available for like under $3.
It's on sale all the time.
It's on major consoles. It's on Steam. You can play it right now, and so that's why I'm not so distressed about it. It's not like one of these things where it's a shame nobody bought it and now it's lost media. It's like, no, it's still out there, and I'm hoping one effect of people getting reinvested in Yooka-Laylee thanks to Yooka-Replaylee is they go back and check that out. But let's talk about Yooka-Replaylee. So it's not just the original Yooka-Laylee with a fresh coat of paint. Although that coat of paint is pretty impressive.
It looks very nice.
Art and animation overhaul, and enhanced performance and resolution. But there's also the original score that's now arranged as an orchestral score.
Hell yeah.
This is the music of Grant Kirkhope and David Wise. So, in case you forgot who contributed to the original Yooka-Laylee, it was mostly Grant Kirkhope. David Wise did applicable tracks where it just made sense for a David Wise kind of vibe. But, I'm really excited to hear this. I do like...
Steve Burke and...
Yes, of course. Well, I mean... Yes, the press release just emphasizes Kirkhope and Wise, unfortunately, but yes. Yeah. And there's going to be changes to the gameplay, how it controls, collectibles, and more. So, the thing I love about the Yooka-Laylee experience with the original game the most, and I just talked about this because... funnily enough, Dustin and Cameron, the Idaho crew, started replaying Yooka-Laylee on Tuesday.
What are the odds?
Like, it's almost like...
If we knew this was coming, I wonder if we would have made that decision.
It's like at the end of the day, it's worth it since we'll have a refresher of the original game and be able to compare any changes.
It's almost like you knew something was coming, but you didn't know what was coming. And so
almost.
But I watched the stream for a bit, and I said, the thing I like about the original Yooka-Laylee the best is the way it controls. I think it's very crisp. I think it's very intuitive and responsive. And it's honestly hard for me sometimes to go back to the Banjo-Kazooie duology on the N64 because Yooka-Laylee just feels so responsive compared to the original Banjo-Kazooie games, which they're fine. They control fine, but I think Yooka-Laylee just one-ups it with just like a modern sensibility.
Right.
But they say that they've tweaked the moveset to allow you to combine moves more fluidly. And there's also new camera controls making framing the action even easier than before. So, okay, that sounds good, but they've also included a world map and a challenges tracker to help you sort out what needs to be done, and I guess to keep you from getting lost, which was a big complaint about the original Yooka-Laylee.
Yeah, that's a lifesaver, I think. Like, we talk about it every now and then. We talk about how, like, Banjo-Tooie is a great game, but a game that could use an in-game map of some sort. Yooka-Laylee as well, so yeah, this is a great addition.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where the lack of it never really bothered me, because I guess I'm just, like, acclimated to that genre throwing you to the wolves. But I feel like it's something that can't possibly hurt the experience for anybody who needs it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, for me, the world that always just, like, bends me over its knee and spanks me hard is Moody Maze Marsh. I just get lost in that world because it all just looks the same to me. And it's just, there's no real, like, the biggest complaint about Yooka-Laylee is, like, the lack of identifiable landmarks in the middle of the worlds. And so it's just very easy to get turned around and just going in circles. And so I'm hopeful there's some additions to the actual, like, level geometry as well, but anything to make the experience a little bit more palatable in that regard,
Right.
I'm eager to see.
It's definitely some of the, like, later, more divisive worlds in the game that I'm interested to see how they tweak, how they, like, polish up, what they change. Those are the ones I'm most excited to see what's going to happen with them in this remake, because what they showed off in the trailer was, like, only really the starting area of the game, which
Shipwreck
I think
Creek,
visually and by design, I think is one of the more stellar areas in the game already.
Yeah.
Right. I was kind of hoping we would see a little bit more.
Yeah, I realized that, wait, we only saw Shipwreck Creek, which is effectively the game's Spiral Mountain, when I was, like, looking over screenshots and I noticed they had the Tribal Stack Tropics Corplets, the stock baddie from the first world, running around Shipwreck Creek, and I'm like, wait a second, that's not supposed to be the case. And then I realized, oh wait, they only showed Shipwreck Creek, so I guess they were putting in characters from like later and just, like, showing off assets within this kind of training area. So that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, and honestly, I would prefer it to be doled out in small little bites rather than seeing so much in the initial trailer and then having the hype kind of taper off while we're waiting for the release. So it's good. It's effective, in my opinion. And I love Shipwreck Creek. It's honestly, like, one of my favorite environments out of the whole game. So it was really cool to see it in this new visual splendor.
Yeah, my only concern is that it might paint a picture for those who aren't, like, investigating further what this game is actually going to be, like, that this is just a slight visual upgrade. Because, as I said, like, the tutorial area really didn't need a lot of extra design finesse. It's kind of really strong as it is.
Yeah.
So I do hope that we're going to see, like, a steady rollout of, like, glimpses of new areas in the future, so that people don't have up until now, until release window, to think the game is just a slight visual pass.
I think that assumption is going to take root no matter what they do, because a lot of people, people just read headlines.
Impossible Layer was DLC, even though like one screenshot should tell you it's not.
Right. The problem is people read headlines and they don't actually read anything else. So it's like, so it's just, people just scroll. They don't actually investigate, and media literacy is dead. News literacy is dead. So, it's going to be an uphill battle they're going to have to fight, but maybe doling out the information slowly is the way to do that. I don't know. But There's also new collectible. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I like Yuka's scales.
Yes. Okay. Well, let's talk about the visuals a little bit more then, because everybody's going on about Fluffy Laylee because it's taking the like rare style furry shenanigans that Nintendo has started to utilize for Donkey Kong. Like it's been hit or miss with Donkey Kong, but I feel like Tropical Freeze is where they really have said like, hey, we're going to do what Rare did 20 years ago, or 15 years ago at that point, whatever. And it's really great to see Playtonic doing it, because as much as I liked how the original Yooka-Laylee looked, it did kind of feel a little bit more, I don't want to say on the cartoony side than what Rare was always known for. Rare always like had this realistic cartooniness, like this weird hybridization of a very like animated style and sensibility, exaggerated, but with this polish of real nature,
Right.
And
yeah,
of course with the N64, they had to just use polygons, but then you got the Star Fox Adventures, you got the Conquer Live and Reloaded, and Nuts and Bolts, I guess, to a lesser extent, and you could sort of have that kind of rendered look, like their promotional renders look like, in this gorgeously realistic looking environment. And I just love Fluffy Laylee. If you look, Yuka has little scales on his skin, and
I really think that so I don't mind Yuka's design, but he's always looked maybe a little plain. I feel like just this little extra dash of detail really helps him out.
What I really love about how they tweaked Yuka is that the scale texturing on him is like really impressively detailed. But it's like still subtle enough that if you just like step back a couple feet, like he just blends in and looks like he always did. It's still like his very distinct, like color segmented design.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool way to do it with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Blasto, we saw a little bit of Blasto in the trailer, and Blasto's got like rust on him, like very like noticeable like age spots for a anthropomorphic canon. And I think everything looks terrific character-wise. Some people are saying they don't like how furry Laylee looks. And you're not going to please.
He does look the most drastically different of anybody, and that's going to take some getting used to. But it's a really cute design. The fur looks well done, and I think it does kind of add a bit more nice contrast between Yuka and Laylee as characters.
Yes. Yeah, they're not just green and purple tubes anymore. They look like things, and I mean that's being a little bit exaggerating there, but it's still like I'm never gonna turn up my nose at furry shenanigans, as we've always called it, because I have such a soft spot for that kind of thing. And the actual like landscape of Shipwreck Creek, like you can see blades of grass, you can see like little light streaming through the trees. It really takes me back to like Live and Reloaded, Star Fox Adventures, just this like a little bit of cameo in there. I love it.
It was really hard not to constantly think of Live and Reloaded, seeing all the stuff in this trailer, and because I know Live and Reloaded is divisive, I'm stressing that as a good thing.
Yes.
Right. I've been a lot more up on Live and Reloaded lately. I've been thinking back on it and saying, you know what? That game's pretty good.
I think the nostalgia that comes with it being 2 decades since the hype cycle for it definitely helps with that. It is something like I can say like, no, I prefer the original Bad Fur Day, but I think back to Live and Reload and you're like, you know what? I was too hard on it. It's all just in the heat of the moment. And yeah, I don't really care that they've censored more things.
Yeah,
like
at this
certain
at this
minor
point.
quibbles with the art direction aside, I think, like relative to when it came out and what hardware it was launched on, one of the most visually impressive games to really ever exist.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I don't love every decision they made, but overall it looks wonderful.
And that's what I really love about Yooka-Replaylee is it looks, more so than any other Playtonic release thus far, it looks like a classic Rare game. And
Oh, totally.
I know Playtonic isn't Rare. I know Rare isn't Playtonic. Like they're separate studios. But most of us got into Playtonic because of Rare. So, yeah,
Fair.
I love it. Well, in the live stream, there has been a mention of Vendy. Yeah, so we didn't see Vendy in any of these screenshots, but there was the desire for Vendy to stay exactly the same. And at least
That's
Vendy's... Yes, at least Vendy's going to be in it, because there's always the threat that Playtonic is holding over our head that they're going to murder Vendy. When Daly was running the social media, it was always like, I'm going to kill Vendy. And now, even today, it's like, should we kill Vendy? Poll. And then it's like overwhelmingly yes. And I'm like, no, like, Vendy's so weird and upsetting, and I love her. Well,
They really lean into the Vendy being such a weird freak.
yeah. I don't think they leaned into it with the first game, but then Impossible Lair, like right out of the gate, it's as soon as you see Vendy, they scream. And so it's like, but Vendy will be back, of course. Like, she hasn't been removed from the remake. In fact, she's tied into a new collectible in the game. These coins, and I'm calling them quack coins, for lack of a better term, but they are the official currency of Ivory Tower's little silver coins with the Quack Core logo on them. And apparently the minions, or not the minions, they're called minions, but corplets, yes. They're basically minions, but the corplets have dropped these coins all over the place. And you can collect them to use with Vendy, because Vendy is a vending machine for Ivory Towers. So, of course, it makes sense that she would take these little silver coins, the official company currency. And with that, tonics, there's going to be new tonics in the game. I'm assuming old tonics are coming back, but they're going to have all new tonics.
Looking forward to that. The tonic system might be my favorite thing about Yooka-Laylee.
Especially Impossible Lair. I think they really hit upon some fun concepts with Impossible Lair. I feel like it was sort of half-baked a little bit.
It's another doing a lot with a little thing that I love in Impossible Lair.
It's just turning filters on, but it was really fun. But some of the tonics were actually like boons, like the ones that where quills could be attracted to you, and, you know, stuff like that. And they're going to have new ones you can, you know, combine and augment, customize the way you want to play Yooka-Replaylee. And this is what's most fascinating to me. It says that Vendy has new lines of merchandise for the modern, fashionable adventurer. So are we going to have costumes? Are we going to have things that Yooka and Laylee can wear?
It sounds like it. I mean, I think adding costumes you can unlock to your game is like, it's a very easy, obvious unlockable to have, but it's always fun. Like, I love it in Mario Odyssey. It's just fun collecting new ways for your character to look.
Right.
Yeah. Now I'm just imagining a Diddy Kong costume in the game, and I'm sad that there won't be.
You can put him in a hat and a shirt.
Yeah. We have hats on the DK Vine merchandise store right now that Playtonic's free to use if they want. They want to put them in a
Get the Stinky Ape Summer Laylee hat. Perfect.
Yeah, that's free to use, Platonic. Anything that's ours is yours. Yeah, so like in the original Yooka-Laylee, like you could wear underpants, and that you know, so you know, something a little bit more varied will be fun. But we know, like, they're talking about there's going to be more changes they're not getting into. And I'm wondering how much they're going to change, how much they're going to go in under the hood and remove things that really didn't work with the original game. And I'm mostly thinking about the Rextro 64's arcade games. I love Rextro. Love Rextro as a character. But those arcade games, they were developed by Team 17 and not Platonic. And they're not that good.
They seem like the first thing to go.
I confess, as a big fan of Rextro the character, I'm a little nervous he's not in that big, impressive, beautiful key art.
Yeah, Kartos is. And, you know, I had issues with the Kartos segments in the original Yooka-Laylee.
My issue with them is that they suck so bad.
Okay. So if they completely change the way Kartos controls, maybe I would be on board with it. But yeah, well,
them fixing them.
Kartos as a whole kind of fell flat with me because he was like, "Oh, I'm old. Nobody likes minecarts and video games anymore." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? Minecraft."
That's really the difference between Kartos and Rextro for me, is that both of their gameplay segments are not the best, but I feel like the joke works so much better with Rextro.
Well,
they're supposed to be bad, and he's supposed to just be this chipper, naive little sprite that you can't be mad at, and Kartos is crotchety and whining about this thing that's not actually a problem.
Yeah, I mentioned Minecraft as like, well, minecarts are still in video games, but the joke is like Donkey Kong Country primarily. Oh, you know, nobody wants minecarts in video games anymore. What an old, outdated idea. Tropical Freeze came out in 2014.
Yeah, shut up, you minecart.
Three years before Yooka-Laylee, and there's going to be a big roller coaster based on Donkey Kong's minecart sequences in Osaka and Orlando. So shut up, Kartos. You don't work. And I don't have an issue with Kartos. I don't have an issue with Kartos in either Impossible Lair or the Yooka-Laylee in the Cracklestone graphic novel. I think he works great there.
Where he's just sort of a doddering old man in Cracklestone, and I like that for him.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Because I have to be honest. I do like the original Yooka-Laylee. I know Freezer in our live stream, she loves it. And
Freezer asks, why does Kartos sound like Bill Clinton, Hyle? And I think the reason for that is that's his one impression.
That's my one impression. It's not even a good impression either. It's like,
but we love it all the same.
You know, it's just like Matthew McConaughey if he got hit by a bus. That's what, like, or Bill Clinton. Like, it's just my one impression, and I don't know what
Hyle,
to say.
Part of being a voice actor, I'd say like a big part of being a voice actor is doing impressions wrong. So I think you've got it down.
I just keep doing the same one wrong though, Dustin.
Yeah, that's fine. You got a career.
Square Mango says, I worry this game won't be able to do much for the original game's reputation because having to rebuy a 7-year-old game is kind of a tough sell. Well, that's what I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to talk about the original Yooka-Laylee, Yooka-Replaylee, and how this might set the stage for Tuka-Laylee. Because, look, I think it's fair. It's completely, generally a correct opinion. If this is your opinion, you are entitled to have it. If you're not looking forward to Yooka-Replaylee, if they announce it and you're like, oh, that's it? Because I understand. Like, I have been on record multiple times on this very podcast series, DK Vine's The Kongverastion, that I will always prefer a new game to a remake. Whenever the topic of Banjo-Kazooie comes up, and everybody wants a Banjo-Kazooie remake. Banjo-Redooie is the terrible pun people come up with for that. And my thing is, look, I don't really have this pressing need for a Banjo-Kazooie remake. It's been so long, just give me a new Banjo-Kazooie, because I don't know if that will be it, right? Now, I think there are some pretty unique circumstances for Playtonic and where they find themselves at this point in time that does justify Yooka-Replaylee a little bit more than on average. Because, one, they have that influx of, and hold your nose, 10-cent cash. I know, but it happened. They have this large studio expansion that they got as a result of that.
I'm confused. 10 cents isn't that much of a... That's not a lot of money.
It's more than I make. It's more than Twitch gives us with their ads. So their studio has expanded, and as such, their plans since Yooka-Laylee Impossible Lair have also expanded. They have got multiple games in development beyond just Yooka-Replaylee, and this isn't just me saying trust me, I know somebody who knows somebody who knows something. They are on record as saying this in the last 24 hours. So,
right.
Yooka-Replaylee is not what they've been working on for the last 5 years. This is a strategic move on their part because they just came off 5 years ago the stellar Impossible Lair, and it's a game that only their most devoted fans are passionate about, but the mainstream slept on because of that lukewarm reception to the original Yooka-Laylee. It's a game that came out the same time as Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, 2017. It looked like small potatoes, and it was an indie game. And again, I think it was a spectacular, huge, polished product for what they had to work with. But people go into it expecting the next Banjo-Kazooie, and they didn't have necessarily the means to do that, especially with all the little compromises they had to make along the way. Kickstarter promises, the crunch for time, maybe a little bit of inexperience, a little bit of rust, and I think for Yooka-Laylee to be a success, they have to reframe people's opinions of the first game. And even if they can only do that marginally, I do think it's worth the shot. Especially using what they've learned since then, using the creative powers of everybody who's joined the studio since then. I definitely understand where they're coming from. And, the original Yooka-Laylee was flawed. It was. I can say that as one of its biggest defenders. It was flawed. I like it better than Donkey Kong 64, at least as far as gameplay goes. But it had its weaknesses, and we all have an opinion about which world we like the least. Everybody has that Yooka-Laylee world where they're like, ugh, I hate that world, and nobody can really agree on which world it is that kind of puts that dampener on the game for them. For me, it's Moody Maze Marsh.
It's making it easier for the Idaho-ker to figure out when we trade off who's playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually don't mind Moody Maze Marsh, but I do not like Glitter Glaze Glacier very much.
And when I was replaying
I know a lot of people are down on Capital Casino, and I have a decent amount of fun in that world.
Yeah, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed Glitter Glaze Glacier after the patch that fixed the snowplow. And I was like, okay, I actually like that. Okay, Icymetric Palace, it isn't complete hot trash like I just wrote it off as because I didn't understand it. And Capital Casino, I think, is one of the most innovative things the game has going for it. But Moody Maze Marsh is just, what if we made an ugly Donkey Kong 64 world that sucked? In my opinion.
I like
Moody
it,
Maze...
but I just like swamp levels. But I am hoping it gets that little extra bit of prettiness in this remaster.
Moody Maze, I think, is far and away the world I think that will most benefit from a visual overhaul.
Yeah.
Just because I think it is the world to me where like suspension of disbelief most falls apart, and I'm just constantly reminded like I am in a curated 3D space in a video game.
Yeah. And Galleon Galaxy, I liked. I thought it was a clever idea.
That's probably my favorite world.
Yeah,
I think
that's one of
the theme really works.
Yeah.
Nothing too annoying about it.
I think it's also just really conceptually strong as an
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah, so there's that. And also, one of the things that I don't want to say fell flat with me with the original Yooka-Laylee, but it was definitely the hardest thing for me at first was how lukewarm I initially felt about the cast. I like some, like Dr. Puzz, I think was a standout.
Yeah. Rextro.
But Rextro, yeah, but there's just the XP factor. I have to be honest, so much of the original Yooka-Laylee was, look, it's like Banjo-Kazooie. I mean, down to the name. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But
there's no reason to call it that unless you're riffing on Banjo-Kazooie.
And it was. Everything was a riff on Banjo-Kazooie. Like, Laylee, this slightly bitchy winged animal, it was just Kazooie again. And it was just hard for me to really get that enthusiastic about the cast. Even if I liked the game, even if I really, got behind some of the ideas in it, it was just that XP factor. And I was just reminded of what I wasn't actually experiencing. It was like when you get that off-brand cola, and it's not Coke or Pepsi, but it's trying to be Coke or Pepsi. And it just tastes a little off and a little flat. And that being said, Impossible Lair and Yooka-Laylee and the Cracklestone. We talked about Impossible Lair. We should also plug Yooka-Laylee and the Cracklestone, the official graphic novel by DM Cumbo, Dream Prism Press. It is spectacular in its own right, and definitely worth picking up, definitely worth tracking down, seeking out. But those two things actually made me find that the cast was more than what they were originally presented as. It made me,
Agreed,
for example,
100%.
Laylee. I really, really love the character of Laylee now because I realize she can be more than just Kazooie like she was originally written in Yooka-Laylee. She's not just a bitchy winged animal. She is hyper, overexcitable, almost childlike
Playful.
bat. Yeah. She's got no impulse control. And I was like, oh, okay, I get Laylee now. Or maybe like Platonic gets Laylee now, I should say. And like that extends to the rest of the cast as well. And just like Cracklestone, like made me really like Trouser and Rextro and Impossible Lair. I was like cheering when characters would show up. I was like, oh my God, it's Rampo. Rampo's here. Rampo.
I remember that guy.
You're catching up with Rampo. And it's just fun. And I was like, oh my God, I'm falling in love with the Yooka-Laylee cast. Finally. So I'm hoping that they take that knowledge and that familiarity and like comfortable relatability they have with the characters now, and they retroactively put it in the original game. A little bit. Like, I don't want too much changed just for authenticity's sake, but just put a little bit of polish on some of their lines, some of their dialogue.
Some dialogue touch-ups.
Yeah, add some dialogue.
But now they have a stronger sense of identity established for a lot of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
You're never
go in with an editing pass.
You're never going to escape the fact that Yooka-Laylee is just trying to be a new Banjo-Kazooie without the IP. But we've seen that the characters can be more than that. So if you go into the original game with that in mind, but that better understanding of the world, I think the whole thing will go down a little bit smoother. And I'm really hoping that, even though it has been 7 years since the original Yooka-Laylee, and I realize that doesn't seem long, I've seen some comparisons with like the original Pokemon versus the remakes, or Super Mario 64 to Super Mario 64 DS. And yeah, 7 years is, if you were like in 5th grade, you'd be graduating high school when this comes out. So it is a wide gulf of time. It just doesn't feel like it if you are of a certain age.
Yeah, Mitchell's the one who brought up that there's a longer gap between these two than there was between Pokemon Red and Blue and the Game Boy Advance remakes. And that's the most fucked up thing I've ever heard of my life.
Right. I mean,
I
even...
think also...
I was just going to say, even Donkey Kong Country had a remake 5 years after the... 6 years. 6 years after the original. And then we got another one 3 years after that. So, like, it's not even unique to our own sphere. My own area of expertise. Conquer, Bad Fur Day to Live and Reloaded. And that was another example where it was like, well, Bad Fur Day completely flopped because those bastards at Nintendo refused to promote it. Thankfully, Xbox can do no wrong. So I realize I'm taking that same kind of optimism and I'm just plugging it 20 years into the future and applying it to this. But
yeah, Laylee's going to say the F word in this one.
It's about time.
Finally. Yeah, I realize I'm the optimist, right? I prefer optimist over shill, but I do think, just given the way the game looks and with enough polish, and people might just be hungry enough for a Banjo-Kazooie game again. Because, let's be honest, in 7 years, nothing's changed on that front. People still are waiting for a new Banjo-Kazooie. So, maybe.
And as you kind of said earlier, like, I think this, like, automatically justifies itself existing a lot more than, like, say, a Banjo remake would, because the original Banjo-Kazooie is widely available on digital storefronts and holds up shockingly well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can gussy it up a little bit. You can, like, add some, like, modern quality of life features, but, like, fundamentally, the base framework that's there is still really, really sound for anybody who just wants to jump in and play it again.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Yooka-Laylee, the most intriguing thing about this is just how much can be shored up.
And I'm really optimistic that the game will feel so much more refined than the first go-around. Would I have just preferred going straight into Yooka-Laylee? I mean, honestly, yes, if you would have asked me at the beginning of the week, sure. But I'm looking at this, I'm excited about this. I'm genuinely excited about this. And sure, it's coming out of a very, very long drought as far as new major DKU games. I get it. So, like, it could be, I mean, anything that wasn't just another Mario Party, and I would have been like, oh yeah, absolutely, let's yes, go. Please. Let's fucking go. But I trust Playtonic's won my trust a little bit. And we'll see if that's justified. But to all the people who are upset...
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say to all the people who are upset that Yooka-Laylee hasn't been announced, it's clearly in the works. They made a joke about it in the trailer where Laylee is complaining that her name was like taken out of the title. I mean, or augmented in the title because it's Yooka-Replaylee. We'll talk about that pun here in a second. But Yooka tries to like pacify her by saying, maybe they'll do my name next, like Yooka-Replaylee or something. Clearly a riff on what the popular conception is, that the game will be called Yooka-Replaylee. And it's in the works, people. Like, come on. Come on. It's probably been in the works longer than this has. And it's probably going to take a little bit more time in the oven. But I'll tell you what, I would rather have this than have nothing between now and when Yooka-Replaylee is ready to come out.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and maybe this can also serve as a bit of a preview for, like, if they can shore up, like, parts of this game, sort of, like, get people more on board with exploring the sequel, even if they weren't necessarily, like, even if they didn't necessarily have all that much confidence in it before. And I was going to say, what gives me, like, has me optimistic for this remake, and by extension, Yooka-Replaylee, is I'm thinking back to those original Yooka-Replaylee developer commentary videos, which anyone who hasn't seen them, I highly recommend. They're really, really great companions to that game. But they are full of just obvious, like, regret of things that they weren't able to shore up or realized with the benefit of hindsight didn't quite work the way they wanted to in the original game. And that they've had 5 years to marinate on, oh God, I should have done that. We could have done this. The things we would do if we could go back, like, all of that. They've had plenty of they like everything people take issue with in the original Yooka-Replaylee. They know because they take issue with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you remember Shovel Knight? He's gonna have, like, a huge bulge in this one.
Oh, Dustin,
but not where you think.
Yeah. Dustin is still on how we can make the game more crass. Yeah.
Freezer in the live stream points out they didn't get Royston working properly. Biggest issue. Yeah, they complain about that in the commentary.
Yes, for those who don't know, I think DK Vine's primarily responsible for why Royston's in Yooka-Replaylee, or why this unnamed goldfish, who's clearly supposed to be Royston, is in Yooka-Replaylee, hence why we cover it here at DK Vine, why it's DKU at least. And Steve Mails was fighting for the fish in Dr. Puzz's bowl to tap on the bowl 3 times, and they didn't do it, and he was so mad about it. So maybe that will be fixed. Maybe that will be like the George Lucas, Greedo was always supposed to shoot first kind of tweak. Except this time it will make sense.
We're just going to have Sebulba in the fishbowl.
McClunky, that's what he'll say in this one. It's a dated joke. But so is Yooka-Replaylee. It's 7 years old. So anyway, let's talk about the pun really quick. Yooka-Replaylee. So in the frenzy to, like, process this all, I was starting to write the article, and I didn't even realize that it wasn't Yooka-Replaylee. That Laylee's name was actually in it. Yooka-Replaylee. And I was like, oh, that pun is just a mouthful. And then I was like, no, actually, it's the best thing I've ever heard. It's such a convoluted stretch, but it's so perfect at the same time. It's dumb, but it's smart dumb. I love it.
It asks a lot of you.
Yes.
It can't possibly be good for the game's SEO, and I mean, they joke about that in the trailer.
Yeah.
But I respect the commitment to the bit so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is a perfect pun.
As somebody who never gives up a bit to his own detriment, I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, way to stay true to yourself. And, you know, like, Yooka-Replaylee, that's also a terrible name. Banjo-Tooie is a terrible name. Banjo-3E is not what they'll call the next game in that series, because that's a terrible name. But you know what? There needs to be more terrible names in video games, because everything is just so polished and corporate these days. Oh, well, how will that play in Peoria? Well, who cares?
Yeah, I prefer a shitty name over a boring name.
The only thing I don't like is and this is the problem with the original Yooka-Laylee, the logo makes it look like the name is Yooka-Replaylee.
That's a lot of hyphens.
And the hyphen, the second hyphen is not actually part of the name. It's Yooka-Replaylee, all one word. So that's my only issue, is that maybe they should rethink the logo.
I guess going back to Banjo-Kazooie, that's been a problem because you have the double hyphens in that title as well.
It all goes back to Banjo-Kazooie. It's all Banjo-Kazooie's fault. But, yeah. So I should also point out, before we move on, the only confirmed platform we've got, as in it's definitely coming out for this, is Steam. It is coming out on consoles. Consoles are confirmed. They're just not being upfront about which consoles yet, and I have to imagine the only reason they're not is because they have to wait on Nintendo to announce the Switch successor. I have a feeling I don't know, but I have a feeling that makes the most sense. Why they're not just saying it's for these systems, because they can't just say for the next Nintendo.
Right.
Because they can't.
Probably won't be coming to the Switch because it. I mean, look at
it's
it.
the Switch.
It looks better than a Switch game. Yeah, that's also wild too, right? Like, and maybe the original Yooka-Laylee was so compromised because it was originally planned to be for the Wii U, and of course, it didn't end up being for the Wii U. It eventually had a Switch port, but that was still downgraded a bit. So they can just go all in and be like, you know what, we're gonna make this look resplendent. Finally.
What a good word.
Yeah, I know. I like words. Like Replaylee, which I was really worried about before we did this because I hadn't said it out loud until we were sitting down to prep for this, and I was like, oh god, I've got to practice because I've only typed it at this point.
I'd been saying it in the mirror for 3 hours before this.
Yeah,
I feel like it's somehow easier to say than it is to write out.
if you say it in the mirror 3 times, Dustin, then Vendy will appear.
And give you a big smooch on the head.
Oh, I'll do that immediately afterwards then. Now, we're not done with Yooka-Replaylee news yet, because Playtonic will be doing a Q&A session this Tuesday with Steve James, their senior community manager, and a select crop of the studio's founders. We don't know who. Some of the founders will be there. So we will find out more then, and it's quite possible we could be doing another Playtonic / Yooka-Replaylee episode very soon, covering all the news that shakes out of this. I don't know yet. TBD. So, but I'm sure we'll be talking about it quite a bit more this summer and for the rest of the year and for however long it takes for Yooka-Replaylee to release, because let's be honest, this is the first new game we've really had to discuss in quite some time. It's been like theme parks and, they added a couple characters to this 10-year-old game and cool stuff, but having a new game to discuss? Yeah, it's holy hell, I've missed it.
I forgot what it feels like.
Yeah. So, anyway, I'm looking forward to it. I understand if you at home are not looking forward to it, but, just keep an open mind, and also keep an open mind that they're developing at least 2 more games right now.
Right.
So,
yeah, when it was announced, I was a little deflated to see it was just the first game again. But, I sat with it a little bit. And to be fair, this is exactly how I felt about Rare Replay when it was first announced. And then I went and got an Xbox One after.
Yeah, you're going to run out and buy an Xbox One for this, and you're going to be very disappointed.
Damn it.
I just want to voice one complaint with the trailer, and I'm hoping this is just because it's in early development, because which I assume is the case because they only showed the first area of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I really hope they update those talking heads, because it is really jarring to see old Laylee's head talking with new Laylee on screen.
Yeah.
So I don't have any like insider knowledge about this, but I have to imagine that the project is somewhat earlier in development than people are assuming. I think that people think, oh, it's been 5 years. They've been working on Yooka-Replaylee for 4.5 years. I feel like it's still it's still pretty early in development, but it's the one that's going to be finished first, clearly. So
that's the impression I get. The trailer to me just screams that it is super early in development. I don't think they, as I said, I don't think it necessarily it is the most impressive thing to only show off the tutorial area, but I don't think that's a choice you would make unless that was the area that's ready to go.
Yeah. And also, as you said, the tutorial area is probably like one of the best areas to show off anyway. So why not? Like, remember, like the Banjo is Back trailer, like the Nuts and Bolts trailer before we knew it was Nuts and Bolts? Mm-hmm. The only thing they showed off there was Spiral Mountain, and everybody was like, yeah! You know, like, that was enough.
Spiral Mountain looked completely different in the game anyway.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about that, but Spiral Mountain still looked good in Nuts and Bolts. It just, you know. But I think, like, if they made a remake of Donkey Kong 64 and they only showed Donkey Kong's Treehouse, it would still be this huge deal, because like these training areas I think are like some of the more iconic ones, just because they're what everybody anybody who has played the game will have experienced that. So it's an easy communicative thing to be like, this is the most iconic location because you definitely saw this if you played the first go around. So
yeah.
The only other question I'll put out there is I wonder how the pirate treasure will work. I wonder if the like corporate security, the /inept bot in Galleon Galaxy is still going to be counting up to something. I wonder if any of that's going to get paid off with the original now that we have a new version, or how they will link up. Like Yooka-Laylee's answer to Stop and Swap. What the hell is going to happen there, considering we're going to be, a generation removed, and who knows? I hope it all comes out in the wash, though.
Yeah, you know what? I couldn't have said it any better myself. I hope it all comes out.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you noticed the stains?
I hope it all comes out is my reaction to most games being showed off nowadays.
Speaking of cum, have you noticed the stains on trouser shorts?
That's pretty good, Hyle.
Yeah. Speaking of coming out and like having negative opinions of the industry, let's move on and talk about Xbox, because the Xbox Game Showcase is going to be this Sunday, June 9th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. British Summer Time. And look, I don't think I've ever felt more dead inside to an Xbox Game Showcase than I have this year. And I know I'm not alone in this. I'm not making some like bold statement here. You know what, everyone? Yeah, I'm just not that enthused about Xbox right now. I just have some negative connotations. I don't know where it's coming from. Look, I say this with all the love and admiration for the studios under Xbox's purview. Of course, truest and most dear to my heart, Rare. I hold no ill will or any chagrin towards them. It's all of my aggravation, frustration, and apathy lies with Microsoft and Xbox itself. They've laid off so many people in such a short amount of time, shuttered studios they just recently procured, and it's just very hard to be enthused about the Xbox brand right now.
That's really what it comes down to, is I'm sure they could still show off games as part of their showcase that I'm interested in, but just the general premise of we're Xbox, look at how awesome we are. It's you're starting at you're whew, starting in the red
now.
there.
Yeah.
And look, I really do like my Series X. Like, I'm never gonna go as far as some of the people on our staff who are like, Series X is trash. I'm glad I have my PlayStation 5. Like, I really like the Series X for a piece of hardware.
I love my Series X too. It's like,
yeah.
It's a really good piece of hardware with a terrible name.
Well,
Yeah.
to be fair, every Xbox has had a terrible name since the Xbox. I mean, it's just garbage from start
That's
to
just
finish.
part of the tradition.
Yeah, right. But like, this is the first Xbox showcase in a while where I feel like it was maybe 20, 15, even 10 years ago, where I'd be walking into it just with this general sense of distaste toward Xbox itself, where I'm only really watching it for the rare aspect of it. And again, like, I feel like Xbox is vastly more diversified with their library and their output than they were even back in 2014, 2015, even. And it's not fair to walk in with such a sour opinion when it's not the developer's fault. It's not the creative's fault that corporate America sucks ass. But yeah, it's just really like, I can't imagine what this Xbox showcase is going to feel like. Like, are they really gonna like be like, yeah, rah Xbox, look how awesome we are. Phil Spencer's taking off 40 different t-shirts. And it's like, these are, hey, what studio am I gonna shutter next? And he takes off a shirt and points like
That's what the shirts are about this year.
They can't do that. Like, Phil Spencer better not show his fucking face. Is what I'm saying. Like, hide behind the curtain, sir.
I will be really surprised at what real people we see, if any, as part of Xbox's presentation. Because
they're going to bring in...
I said this as much on our... Like, when we talked about, like, these presentations with Nintendo's side of things, like... You can't really do, like, a corporate head as personality like Nintendo could do with... Reggie when he was there and before we found out certain things, and Iwata when he was alive, because just so much unpleasantness is directly at the feet of Microsoft's higher-ups right now.
Yeah,
they gotta come out wearing t-shirts that say sorry on them.
No, like, what they'll do is they'll bring in the animated Battletoads from, like, that one trailer. They'll be like, here's Rat... Hey, kids, here's Rash the Battletoad to tell you about the new Forza.
In 2004, we were all wondering who Microsoft's mascot was going to be, and now, 20 years later, we get to debate who's going to be the spokesperson, smokescreen.
This is how they bring Conquer back.
No, it's going to be Blink Style. That guy's going places.
Gotta happen sooner or later.
So, even with, like, just like, oh, God, Xbox, even with that attitude this year, I also don't think, it doesn't help that I think it's just going to be a very unsexy year in general during the Xbox showcase.
The last few years.
For DK Vine's general interest. I think it's just going to be...
Same every year.
Not every year.
Right,
Most years.
For the last few years.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with what is probably a surefire thing. And I say, like, it's not even going to be this, like, sense of excitement or, like, ooh, what are they going to show? Because Sea of Thieves. There's always a Sea of Thieves trailer. There's always a Sea of Thieves trailer. I think pretty consecutively there's been a Sea of Thieves trailer. Like, maybe 1 year it was just in a montage. But otherwise, there's always been a Sea of Thieves trailer since 2015. And here's the deal with Sea of Thieves in 2024. They pretty much already laid out their whole year during their 2024 preview event on March 20th. And I really, really doubt there is going to be another surprise crossover like Pirates of the Caribbean, like Monkey Island last year. Like, they're not going to say, finally, Edward Scissorhands has come to Sea of Thieves.
Yeah. I feel like the game is still like kind of playing catch up from like things that fell by the wayside as they were doing the Monkey Island update, which is stellar. It's one of my favorite things in the game. But I think that it's just they like Rare and its partner studios just kind of need a breather.
Yeah.
After that,
a smaller year for them.
And yeah, you know how apathetic I was to the Monkey Island reveal last year.
Right.
But it was spectacular. Like, as much as I did not care about Monkey Island, I loved those three tall tales. They did their job and they won me over. But yeah, like, I think we're gonna have a more detailed trailer about what we already know is coming. Like, Season 13 will be the return of Captain Flameheart. You know, the Burning Blade will be in Sea of Thieves as a world event. So I think there's going to be a trailer, probably, here comes Flameheart. Ooh, Daddy's here. Oh, and I hope it's Daddy's home, you know, like, and he, you know, it's that's the tone it takes. But yeah, I think that's,
they can do it.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be it for Sea of Thieves. And, you know, Sea of Thieves has been this perpetual motion machine as far as satiating my direct needs from Rare, right? Like, as much as I desperately want a new Banjo-Kazooie game, as much as I want Sea of Thieves to maybe embrace the legacy a little bit more, like Captain Black Eye, TT, I still really love Sea of Thieves, and it has just been a constant source of Rare since March 2018. And so, like, that's all well and good. That keeps me going 51 weeks out of the year. But during what is traditionally E3 week, that 52nd week, I want something new. And I love seeing Sea of Thieves during these things. I will always love seeing that Rare logo pop up and you know, the Sea of Thieves trailer style, but you know, it's just something we live with constantly. And
I love Sea of Thieves, but we've seen it a lot.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that it's more successful than it's ever been. It's a smash hit on PlayStation. Like, bravo. I'm so, like, we talk about the dire state of Xbox, and Rare is, like, ironically in the best position they've been in for decades because of the success of Sea of Thieves. So, like, it's a weird thing. But my biggest hope for Rare, trending on the realistic side of things, because, I mean, my biggest hope for Rare, I could go crazy with a wish list for things I'd want to see, both in Sea of Thieves and elsewhere. But keeping things realistic, keeping things grounded, I just want an update on Everwild. And I don't think that's so unreasonable. Like, I'm not being pushy about it. If it needs more time to cook, it needs more time. But I would like a little bit of an update. Like, hey, we're still here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, something to tell us. Yeah, it's still alive.
Yeah, I've said this before, but like, even though Yooka-Laylee is the game that like hasn't even been like officially announced, I feel like I still know what it is more than Everwild.
Absolutely. I have a complete picture of what Yooka-Laylee is in my mind, and Everwild, I just think about the vomiting salamander fish that vomits its babies up, and I'm like, yeah,
that
Everwild.
was a good salamander fish, though.
I love that salamander, but like, I know Everwild has been like taken back to the drawing board. They brought in Greg Mayles. I don't even know where that is at the moment, but this isn't me being pessimistic about
Commander is now the main character.
Yeah, that'd be great.
This isn't me being pessimistic about Everwild. I trust that it's finding its direction, and I'm going to be enthused about it when we know more about it. I'm just pessimistic about seeing a trailer. I would love to see a trailer. I just don't know if we will. Like, for me, I'm going to be pessimistic about it until it's just there. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
holy shit, Everwild. Because it feels like Everwild is one of those things like Saberman Stampede, where we knew about it, but it just never saw the light of day. And it just entered development hell, and then it just kind of faded away. The only difference is they've actually announced it, and we've seen a trailer or two. So it's a little bit, it's more akin to Donkey Kong Racing, except there's no real reason why it's taken this long, except it just wasn't working. So
We could still get that Saberman Stampede trailer this year.
Donkey Kong Racing could happen. It could happen. So as far as, because I have to mention Banjo-Kazooie. I'm sorry, I have to mention it. Because there's always that kernel of a possibility. That little...
That's always what a lot of the audience wants to see every year.
That little unpopped kernel at the bottom of the bag. And you're like, ooh, could that be Banjo-Kazooie down there? Well, let me dig for it.
That's how it feels every time you hear that world premiere.
World premiere, and you're just waiting for the strum of and this never comes, or it's like world premiere, and you're like you're bracing the armrest of your chair, and then it's just this gray like post-apocalyptic world, and you're like
space shooter, cool.
It could be Spiral Mountain.
Going in a different direction.
Wait for it. Okay, those are humans, but they could be humans visiting Spiral Mountain.
Could be a fake out.
Humba Wumba's a human. Grunty's technically a human. It almost feels selfish, hoping that a Banjo-Kazooie game has arisen up somewhere with the turmoil at Xbox right now. Like, a few years ago, that's when the rumors started that Banjo-Kazooie is in development somewhere under the watchful eye of Xbox Studios and maybe somebody at Rare.
Right.
And that was a few years ago. And the best I can say about it now, because I've not heard anything about this from any sources I have. I've only just heard the industry scuttlebutt that everybody else has heard. It's like when you know a storm's coming and the air feels sticky and there's that slight chill to the breeze and you're like, storm's coming. Yep. Yep. But it's just, you don't know when it's going to like blow in. And I don't think the storm is here yet. I just don't. I know, like, everybody, it feels like there's this game that's being played, and I love games, right? That's why I run DK Vibe. But it feels like there's this parlor game where everybody wants to guess which studio is going to take on Banjo-Kazooie. Right now, it's Toys for Bob, right? Because Toys for Bob just announced they're partnering with Xbox to publish their next game, and everybody started, like, clawing off their face like in the mirror in Poltergeist, waiting for Vendy to show up because they were like, oh my god, Toys for Bob is doing Banjo-Kazooie. That's just like, calm down.
I don't think Toys for Bob is doing Banjo-Kazooie. That seems like it seems like too recent a development. It would be cool though. I love Toys for Bob. I love Banjo. I'd love to see that, but I'm just not feeling like it's the case.
Yeah,
I think they could do it. I think they'd be a perfect fit. I'm not going to assume that it's definitely a sure thing just because I want the pieces to align and be mad when it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's that Space Ghost clip where he says, "I believe everything that man just said because it's exactly what I wanted to hear."
Yeah. So, like, the question is, has Banjo-Kazooie been in development, or have they just been in constant talks? And be like, well, you're not the right fit. No, we don't like your pitch. Phil Spencer, like, evoked Banjo-Kazooie. He said the name back in December. And so I definitely think there are conversations, at the very least, if it hasn't been in development for a while now. I just can't say for sure. And I just don't think it's the year. I don't think it's in the cards. I will be so happy if I'm wrong. I'll be peeing.
Yeah,
I'm sure Microsoft would be happy. It's like the exact kind of Hail Mary they would really want this year.
The
At
Canary
least for
Mary.
us, it would be their one good get out of jail free card.
Yeah, it's like, all right, well, we realize you just unemployed like 1,000 people, but it's Banjo-Kazooie, so.
Jingles ice keys in front of you.
Yeah, like I don't want to sound like it's impossible that it could happen at this show.
Yeah.
I feel like it's unlikely, but we could all be surprised. Who knows?
I feel the same way about Everwild, weirdly enough. Like, I'm at the exact same amount of pessimism I am for an Everwild trailer as I am a Banjo-Kazooie trailer. I don't know if that speaks well of Banjo-Kazooie or it speaks ill of Everwild, but the only thing I know for sure is there'll be something for Sea of Thieves, and it will probably not be exciting if you're well-versed in Sea of Thieves news. So, that's Xbox. I don't even have a co-host yet for the Xbox conversation. This Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Woo!
We'll see how it goes.
Well, we'll see who wants to do it with me. I don't know who gets the short straw there. But let's move on to Nintendo. Something a little bit more optimistic, albeit a complete question mark this year. Now, not so much a question mark as will we get a Nintendo Direct, because for the first time, we do know, for the first time since E3 collapsed in and of itself, we know there will be a Nintendo Direct in the month of June. We just don't know when, and we just don't know what, because it's going to be a weird one, folks, because we are coming up to the end of the original Switch's life. And I feel like we've been at the end of the original Switch's life for a few years now, because everybody has kind of been trying to will the Switch 2, the Super Switch, the whatever, the Switch U. They've been trying to will it into existence. And
Ultra Switch D4.
The Switch 360, the Switch Series N.
All of these better names than Series X.
Yeah. So we finally have confirmation that Nintendo will announce it this fiscal year, but it won't be during the June Nintendo Direct. So that takes all that off the table, which actually is a little bit more freeing in that it's going to pertain to kind of the tail end of the original Switch. But what will that mean? And I feel like expectations are muted as a result. As muted as people can get for a Nintendo Direct, because people fly off the handle with wild speculation for a Nintendo Direct. It doesn't matter how much you kind of tamp down on those expectations. I would say, even though they're muted, expectations are still pretty high for Donkey Kong. And not because everybody thinks the new game is going to be announced this month. I don't really think most people think that. I think it's because of everything else going on with Donkey Kong right now. Like the huge resurgence of Donkey Kong. Like everything that comes with a brand being hot, except for there being a new game. It's a really, really weird time for Donkey Kong. Weirder than it was last year. Now, this is a very interesting article. It was recently run on the website therap.com. It's a Hollywood-based website, usually about feature films, but it's talking about the surge in video game movie adaptations, about how that's, people are going back to that gold mine after the success of the Super Mario Brothers movie, the Sonic movies. the Fallout TV show, The Last of Us. People want to adapt video games. And this is kind of buried near the bottom of it, but it's staggering. So I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this verbatim. The top 5 fastest growing gaming franchises based on total growth in 2023, which franchise IQ based on both franchise popularity, awareness and affinity for franchises among the general public, and power. The franchise's ability to move forward and grow, and the intensity of its fans. Okay? Included The Last of Us, Donkey Kong, Mario, Twisted Metal, and Gran Turismo.
Ooh.
Donkey
I like that
Kong.
Donkey Kong gets name dropped before Mario.
Yeah, eat it. Eat it, Mario.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Back of the line.
You're stupid.
So, I
love
understand.
that guy.
Well, we owe a lot to Mario and the movie for really juicing the goose a little bit. That's not a phrase. I just made that up. You don't juice the goose. What does that mean?
It's fun
But-
to say, though.
The Super Mario Brothers movie made Donkey Kong, and by extension, his world, super popular with the kids. In a way that it hasn't been super popular with the kids probably since the N64. Probably since Donkey Kong 64. Since the late 90s.
My nephew loves Donkey Kong just purely off of the movie. And, you know, I've shared some Donkey Kong stuff with him, too. But, like, he got, like, a ton of those Mario Lego sets with Donkey Kong.
Yep.
Just recently, he was so excited to get the DK and Cranky one.
Your nephew loved Keaton Thompson as Funky Kong on SNL.
Yeah,
Talking
he was
about-
like, oh, man, that's such a perfect portrayal.
Talking about slapping the booty cheeks. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really into the series now because of that.
It's bewildering to me, and I think that the tunnel vision sometimes Donkey Kong fans, the hardcore Donkey Kong fans, the intensity of the fans, as stated by the Rap.com, we look at it's been 10 years since Tropical Freeze, and we kind of miss the forest for the trees because Donkey Kong is super hot right now. As hot as Mario, or almost as hot as Mario, but right up there with The Last of Us, one of the most critically acclaimed series on television in the last year. Like, whoa.
That is pretty crazy to put it alongside The Last of Us.
Yeah. So, again, I don't think a new Donkey Kong game will be shown off direct. I don't know what the status is. Again, as I've been up front, my source of information pretty much ends after Freedom's scuttling and it purportedly being taken internally, but I don't know where it's gone from there. I don't know if that's still the case or if they pass it off to somebody else. But when you look at how hot Donkey Kong is, when you look at the fact that there are 2 theme parks opening up at the end of this year and next year, Nintendo's gotta have something coming. And I don't just mean the new game. Because those theme parks are primarily based on the iconography of Donkey Kong Country Returns. And again, no inside information here. None of us know anything about this. This is just looking at logic and looking at what would be logical. And again, Nintendo isn't always known for their logic, but here's something that a lot of people overlook. There is a release for the NVIDIA Shield TV in China in 2019, and it was Donkey Kong Country Returns, running at 1080p and without waggle controls. They've got a version of Donkey Kong Country Returns ready to go. HD. No Wii controls. how likely is it that Nintendo will not do a damn thing about this? And not have a Donkey Kong game ready to go. Don't even think about Epic Universe opening in Orlando next year. Think about Universal Japan. The Donkey Kong Country theme park is a big damn deal. They're not going to have product on the shelves. Kids are going to go to that theme park and be like, I want to go to Donkey Kong's world. Well, there's Tropical Freeze, yes, but why wouldn't you release this HD version of Donkey Kong Country Returns you've got at the end of the Switch's life when they're probably just throwing stuff out there to, you know, pad store shelves? I would be amazed if we don't get this because it just makes all the sense for the world. Like, talk me out of it because I don't see why they wouldn't.
It would just be a, like, spectacularly, like, money on the table situation, especially considering how remake happy they've been recently with like Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Luigi's Mansion 2,
Paper Mario.
Which, don't get me wrong, I love that I can play Thousand Year Door again.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't even have to do anything, really. Like, it's not even like
HD version ready to go.
And I know people will complain.
Yeah.
You're gonna charge me however much money for this game again. People are always gonna complain about it. I made a joke on social media, like, oh, the fuzzy Laylee is worth the price of Yooka-Replaylee alone, and people were like, no, it is not. They expect, and it's just like,
serious?
Yeah, because people.
Media literacy is dead.
Yes. my new DKU lore tour, like, they're like, why are you talking about coffee? And I'm like, it was a joke in the I make jokes. I
don't you know what a joke is?
So look, you can say, like, I don't want Donkey Kong Country Returns again. I would love a version of Donkey Kong Country Returns that's HD, that doesn't have that, like, muddy, like, Wii look to it, that doesn't have waggle controls. Because for me, the definitive version of Donkey Kong Country Returns is Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D for the 3DS.
Right. And if they did this HD Donkey Kong Country Returns, I would hope, I don't know if I would expect it, but I would hope it would have that bonus world.
I wouldn't expect it.
I'm not counting on it, but it is ideally what I would want. I would like to have, like, a definitive version of Donkey Kong Country Returns that actually consolidates the best of every previous release.
Yeah.
While also having it in an HD resolution.
That would be ideal, but how much work would that actually entail?
Yeah, I don't know.
I just don't count on it because I feel like I do not really have the expectation for Nintendo to integrate things that a previous port did,
right,
into a new one.
Yeah.
That said, to anyone who, like, looks at the idea of, like, DKC Returns getting a port to the Switch and saying, well, that's not what I want, it's not really for you if you don't want it. It's to get the game in front of an audience again.
Yeah.
Because, as you've said, there's going to be a very, very expensive theme park based around a game that you cannot purchase directly from Nintendo right now.
It's weird a little bit, but I imagine they just want Donkey Kong stuff on the shelf, and people are like, well, what about Mario versus Donkey Kong? They just released that. Okay, but cover your ears,
Gibbon.
Want
people to like Donkey Kong.
Cover your ears, Gibbon, if you're listening. Please, just plug them up. I'll get count to 20. Mario versus Donkey Kong does not tie into the Donkey Kong brand. It's a Mario game with Donkey Kong in it.
It doesn't tie into the brand of being good either.
Okay, Dustin, that's too far.
Ooh, did I go there?
30 seconds.
Donkey Kong Country Returns ties in directly with the theme park. So
Right.
It's done. Like, I wouldn't be advocating for this if the work wasn't done. I wouldn't expect Retro Studios to be able to do anything because they're tied up in Metroid Prime 4 Purgatory. So the fact that it's already, like, been put out in a territory in the past 5 years, just slap it on a Switch cartridge and ship it out. Like, I don't...
Yeah, come on.
Like, no, like I don't care. I don't care at this point. I want to play Donkey Kong Country Returns again because I like Donkey Kong Country Returns, but I would love to play it that in a more friendly, welcoming style than the Wiimote and the nunchuck. And
Agreed.
it would just be great to play on my Switch. Just like anything. Like, I keep going on about, oh, it'd be great to have Banjo-Tooie on my Switch. Why? Because I love playing my Switch. I love playing it in handheld mode.
Yeah.
It would be fun to play
It's just a very
Banjo-Tooie.
appealing device to play things on.
That's right. So, I think Nintendo would be dunderheaded if they did not do this.
Ooh.
And do I expect it? I can't say for sure. Like, I have no reason to believe it's actually coming except intuition and looking at everything. How hot Donkey Kong is right now. The theme parks, everything, and being like, the game that's defying Donkey Kong from 2010 onward is not readily available. And kids are going to be looking for Donkey. Now, my only concern is Donkey Kong Country Returns is pretty challenging. And when it came out in 2010, some kids really liked it, but it also turned off a generation of kids because it was so brutally challenging. And I don't want to repeat that, but at the same time, whatever. Like, unless the new game's ready to go, got to get something out. So,
Yeah, totally. I'll be happy to see Donkey Kong anything at this show.
yeah. Freezer says Donkey Kong is always hot. John Tessier agrees.
Sure.
Donkey Kong's so hot right now. So, yeah, like, I think that things are good for Donkey Kong, and people are just so pessimistic right now. And it's just, like, it's weird. I wasn't going to bring this up, but somebody on social media just came at me the other day. I was posting about Yooka-Replaylee, and they were like,
Not
you need
even
to be
related to Donkey.
Yeah, they were like, you need to be institutionalized because you like Donkey Kong. Give it up. And I'm like, what? I'm talking about Yooka-Replaylee. Like, whatever, internet people, but like, things are great for Donkey Kong right now. We just don't have that game. But I think you would kind of have to dig your head in the sand a little bit to not see that stuff is coming. And hopefully it's Donkey Kong Country Returns HD or whatever they call it for the Switch. I mean, ideally it'd be like, hey, the new Donkey Kong game is going to be the last big game on the Switch. Boom, there you go. And that would be cool too. I'm just not
That'd be great. That'd
actually.
be a good swan song.
I think like I think we're all just expecting it to be for the next console at this point, but
Right.
it's
It can go
not
either way. I personally, I feel like, you know, especially if the rumors are true and it is backwards compatible, there would really be no need to hold off on it for the new console. But you know, it could be anywhere at this point.
Yeah. It could be a Breath of the Wild situation. Hey, it's for both.
That's true.
Whatever. And I'd buy both, and I'd play both. But yeah.
We know.
The nice thing though about the rumors of the Switch 2 being backwards compatible is that Nintendo Switch Online will persist, will continue onward, and we don't have to worry about, oh no, Nintendo Switch Online is going to have to just start all over again.
I'm so glad for that. Just imagine if they were like, yep, we're starting all over again for the Switch 2. Here's Super Mario 64.
Here's the original Super Mario Brothers, and we'll add more later.
I've played that a million times.
DK Donkey Kong for the NES.
Yeah, get your Nintendo Switch Online profile icon now by playing Donkey Kong for the
in all
NES.
their like desaturated, dim-colored goodness.
I did go in there and I got all of the ones of Donkey Kong Senior and the oil drum because I was like,
I got them for completion's sake. I'm never gonna use them.
I think right now I have one of the 8-bit sprite of Donkey Kong Senior like flashing his toothy grin. I will change it to the modern Donkey Kong eventually, or Diddy Kong if they finally add Diddy Kong.
The list of like extremely obscure Mario characters who are getting Switch icons before Diddy Kong is growing and growing, and it's funny every time.
Boshi from Super Mario RPG has an icon before Diddy Kong does.
Chained
Don't
Kong.
get me wrong, Boshi. Yeah, Chained Kong. Don't get me wrong, they should have icons. That's cool. It's just funny.
Yeah, I have to imagine this is why the Wikipedia editors deleted Diddy Kong's Wikipedia page. Because like, well, if he's such a big deal, where's his Nintendo Switch Online
icon?
profile icon?
Yeah, I mean, Diddy, yeah, sure, but he's no Admiral Bobbery.
The only two characters listed under Donkey Kong's
I'm very pleased with those, by the way. I'm very pleased with the Paper Mario partner avatars, but it is extremely funny.
The only two Donkey Kong characters on Donkey Kong's Wikipedia portal right now are Donkey Kong and Mario.
Mario.
Yeah. So anyway, Nintendo Switch Online. The great thing is we don't have to worry about, it was great that we got Banjo-Kazooie on the original Switch, but it's going to be all starting over again when the next one comes out. And then we're going to have to, start from scratch. We never got Diddy Kong Racing. We never got Banjo-Tooie. We still haven't gotten Donkey Kong 64 or the Donkey Kong Land trilogy. And I'm hopeful that with the June Direct, since maybe pickings are slim, as far as what they can show off, considering what they're saving for the future versus what they can show off for this year, that it will be a deluge of NSO releases and announcements. And I'm really, really hoping Diddy Kong Racing, Diddy Kong Racing. If this Stinky Ape Summer, I was going to say E3 almost, I almost slipped. This Stinky Ape Summer procures us the Yooka-Laylee remake, an HD port of Donkey Kong Country Returns, and Diddy Kong Racing on NSO. Nothing will be new, but I'll feel pretty damn happy about everything. It'll be like, you know what? This has been the best E3 in years, since 2019. Because Diddy Kong Racing, having that, do I really need to get into it? I've gone into it. You know what it would mean for the community. You know what it would mean for especially the vector, the Venn diagram of Donkey Kong fans that are all in on the Donkey Kong universe notion. What that would mean for us to get Diddy Kong Racing back in people's hands. And I want Banjo-Tooie too. I do want Banjo-Tooie, but
Diddy
Kong
Kong
Racing
really just give me Diddy Kong Racing again, and that's a good presentation to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care what else you do.
Yeah. I want the Donkey Kong Land trilogy, and it would be nice to have eventually Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color, the DKC GBA remake trilogy. I'm not even going to get into the THQ rare titles. I'm sorry, Freezer, but let's be honest, those are probably not in the cards anytime soon, just because we're the only ones who care. But us and Paul Makachek and some other people who worked on them. But Diddy Kong Racing, top of the list. Banjo-Tooie, not far behind. Donkey Kong 64, absolutely. Maybe the Donkey Kong Land trilogy. But I'm optimistic.
You know what, Hyle?
Yeah.
I'm going to say the rare GBA games, not entirely out of the question. They just added Iggy's Wreckin' Balls to N64 Online. If that can get on there, any of those rare GBA games could.
But Iggy's a Koopaling, Dustin. Of course it would be on there.
What? I forgot about that. That is definitely the Iggy.
Yeah, it's like how Roy's are always in Smash Brothers. Just... So yeah, I'm fingers crossed that, but again, what you expect from Nintendo is usually not what you get with Nintendo, and where all the logic in the world would say, well, now's the time. It's going to be like, oh yeah, here's what hasn't been on NSO. Has Yoshi's Cookie been on NSO?
I don't think so.
Okay, well,
I haven't
we'll see.
checked the NES Online app in years.
No, that's
Yeah.
definitely the one that gathers the most dust for me.
Yeah.
So I pulled it up for the very first time to play Donkey Kong NES to get those Switch profile icons. Like I was like, oh wow, like it had this big
Lot of
update,
cobwebs
and
in here.
yeah, and like all these like panels hadn't flipped over because I hadn't opened it since ever. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway, anything else you think we might see from Nintendo? Any Mario sporting titles?
I always just go in thinking there's a chance of that, but I never count on it.
Yeah, I think the odds of at least seeing Donkey Kong somewhere in like a Mario spin-off or something, the odds are actually not that bad.
I'm just not that excited. I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah. I mean, at this point, we've had so many of them, and I feel like, this is just, I can't speak for everybody, but it feels like so many of the Mario sports games this generation have been pretty big flops. Not sales-wise, but just, like, excitement-wise. Like, I think about the Super Mario Strikers that just came out. That came and went.
Have they been
also...
flops, or are you just older?
Yeah.
Are you just dispassionate about life?
It's also harder to really feel like we can expect some of the Mario spin-offs, because I feel like, aside from Mario Party sometimes, like, Mario spin-offs have turned into, like, you only get one of this kind of game per hardware generation.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they've covered most of the ones we've seen before. We got more than usual. We got tennis, we got golf, we got strikers, we got kart.
Yeah, in a live stream, our audience is debating the quality of the titles you just listed. And yeah, the Mario Golf Super Rush, Hurt Porygon Q, Zip Binders says Mario Tennis Aces was good. I will agree.
That is the one I heard was good. I haven't
Mario
played it, but
Tennis
that's the one I heard
Aces.
most positive things about.
Mario Tennis Aces was aces, but I liked golf, but I just didn't stick with it because I think it just was kind of empty.
Right.
Like I like the general golf gameplay. It's the same like quality, but it's just there was just nothing to it, and it was incomplete when it was released. And
I think the worst thing is a new Mario Strikers should have been like a grand slam. Like, when that was announced, people were all over it, and then that's another one that came out, barely any content in it, and so people just dropped it.
Yeah, it is this kind of distressing idea to release it, and just with the I can add to it later, and it's like something like that.
And sometimes you don't.
Yeah, I feel like something like that needs to be like just ass throttling when it comes out. Like it just needs to really, really bowl you over. Like, could you imagine if Smash Ultimate came out and there was just like 8 characters in it and
yeah,
a handful of
default
stages?
Roster's all you get, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
we'll add more sooner or later, maybe.
Yeah, no, it had a killer release, and you didn't even like worry about DLC at the time, So
Yeah, it felt complete on release, and then when they add more to it, that's just awesome bonuses. You're not waiting for the game to be a full game.
Square Mango does say we're lacking baseball, and
That's
That's a good point.
the Slugger series is I think well regarded, definitely for Donkey Kong fans, considering the amount of Kongs that made their way in. NK Rool.
and Kremlings, yeah.
Yeah.
it's a sport that demands a lot of players, and that really helps for getting a bunch of Donkey Kong faces in.
Yeah,
But
you can't release it with like 10 characters and then say, we'll add more.
But then, Strikers, they did remove the critter goalies, so...
True. That's where it went wrong.
Yeah, right? Like, I think the critter goalies really, like, pulled a lot of the weight for those early releases. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's gonna be something more. I'm sure Mario will have 8 games in this Direct. It doesn't fucking...
Oh, he always does.
Yeah, and then people are like, oh, why don't we have this Mario game? I'm like, shut up.
I've seen a lot of that lately. I've seen a lot of people complaining that there wasn't like a big new 3D Mario game, as if Mario doesn't get a million games every year.
Yeah, like, me, I'm like, oh, right, really hope this game from 1997 shows up on NSO.
Would be nice if we could get this decades old game, please. Oh, I'd be so overjoyed.
Most of our requests out of Nintendo on this on this episode have been for games that already exist.
I feel like this is the most constrained we've ever been on one of these preview / kickoff episodes for the game announcement season, where it's just like, yeah, Rare, just show us the game you're working on. Nintendo.
We've been starved for so long that we're really reaching for the table scraps.
Nintendo, just give us this 14-year-old game and this game that's like 27 years old. Just give us that. It's like, this is the most reasonable we've ever been, and I think that shows tremendous growth on our part.
We're not asking for much.
We're not asking for much. We're reasonableist here. Freezer compared me to a cult leader just a minute ago, saying that I was like a cult leader constantly delaying the end of the world. And look, I'm a cult leader whose doomsday is being developed into massive theme parks and has one of the hottest franchise IQs across the video game landscape.
Yeah, they said it, not you.
I think I'm doing a little bit better than the Branch Davidians or Heaven's Gate or whatever. Like, I'm
picturing the Nintendo Direct, and they give us all these things we just talked about, like Returns remake, putting all these games on NSO. And then I'm just imagining them being like, oh, and by the way, here's one last thing, and then it's the new Donkey Kong, and we're like, oh, no, thank you, I'm full. Thank you, though.
Yeah, it's like our opinion on Dixie Kong and Smash after we got K. Rool and Banjo-Kazooie.
That's
like,
exactly what I was thinking.
Oh, we don't want to be greedy. No, we've had ours. Please, everybody. Like,
thank you, though.
Yes, we're good. We're so generous. It's the extreme rubber. It's the extreme rubber banding from how DK Vine was 20 years ago, where we were setting fire to institutions for, like, not having Diddy Kong in a game. So I'm just constantly atoning for my uncouth behavior.
Right. Don't get me wrong. I'll take literally anything Donkey Kong they can give us.
Porygon Q in the live stream said Donkey Kong 64 remake could be cool. So the idea of a Rare era remake just came up in our inner circle the other day. I was talking a little bit about how easy it would be to release Donkey Kong Country Returns in like just the HD version, waggle free on the Switch, and people like brought up, well, I would rather just see them remake the Donkey Kong Country trilogy. And the problem with that is time, budget, and Rare. Like, obviously Nintendo could remake these games without Rare. Yeah. But would they remake these games without Rare? The amount of time it would take. We talk about Yooka-Laylee being a flawed game, and Playtonic is kind of having a second go at it, another crack at it with Yooka-Replaylee. I couldn't remember the name there because it's a very, very convoluted pun, and I love it. I like make them even more complicated and confusing. Playtonic. I want there to be just horrific game titles that like take up entire paragraphs.
The
But
more syllables, the better the game is.
Me Muppet agrees in a chat. Me Muppet is spamming us with the pants dance emote, which is Me Muppet's speciality, and I love to see it. I always love the little gif/gif of Mr. Pants. Talk about, I don't like waggle controls, but I love Mr. Pants waggle.
I love when he waggles.
I love this. I hate to see him leave, but I love to watch him go. No, that's not it.
Good try, though.
I'd love juice his goose. But yeah, I think Donkey Kong 64. I think Nintendo hates that game. And I think internally they don't look favorably upon it. I think they really like what Rare did with Donkey Kong Country by and large. I don't think they respect Donkey Kong 64, and I don't think they would go out of their way to do a new version of it.
Which is very interesting, since it feels like one of the ones they reference the most.
Some aspects, and I think it's just the weird case of it was the biggest Donkey Kong game at the time, the buyout, and so they kind of took on some of the stuff from it. But I think it's been 25 years, and if they are going to do a new 3D Donkey Kong game, they're going to do a new 3D Donkey Kong game their way. Yeah. So
I would like a remake of it, though. I don't see it happening, but I'd take it.
It could use a Replaylee style remake, but the problem is the people to do it aren't there.
Yeah.
And again, the biggest thing, the biggest divide between really taking those old games and doing these remakes that Nintendo is so prone to do is Rare is owned by Microsoft. And yes, the relationship between Nintendo and Rare is probably stronger than it's been since the waning days of their relationship, since 2001 or whatever. But it's still a divide. It's still a corporate wall up. And so I very much doubt it. Just Andre, hello Andre, suggested Yooka-Laylee and the Possible Replayer as another terrible name. I guess an Impossible Layer remake, which it does not need. So people just need to buy the original, damn it. But anyway. Which you should. So anyway, we will do a live episode of the Kongverastion, 8 p.m. or honestly, I don't even know what time it will be. It just depends. But we'll do it the day of the Nintendo Direct, whenever that will be. Check your local listings.
It'll be when you least expect it.
Yes. And that brings us to the end of this episode, everyone. Stinky Ape Summer is going to be fun. And at the very least, we have a big game to really get behind, to rally behind, to celebrate. Doesn't matter if you're not that enthused about it. It's a portent of things to come. Yooka-Laylee's coming. More Platonic stuff is coming. It's just great for Platonic to break radio silence in a way that like they haven't for the last 5 years. And it's just great to see screenshots of video games again and be like, ooh, that looks pretty. Ooh,
nice.
Let me open that up in a new tab, get the high res version of that. Oh, I can't save it as a PNG. Okay, I'll copy and paste it into Photoshop, and then I'll save a high res version of it there. Okay. That's really fun. Not so much the fact that you can't save PNGs anymore on all these websites, but the fact that we just have something to kind of obsessively study again. The video game hype cycle that I've lamented that we haven't had in so long, it's back. Even if it's for a remake, it's still something I'm really, really intrigued by, and it's still something I'm really looking forward to. And DK Vine is going to obsess over this, whether you like it or not. I'm sorry, we are. We're not going to shut up about it. So... hopefully we'll have more to discuss this Stinky Ape summer, but I'm feeling good already, because usually we're going into these previews being like, well, I hope we see Donkey Kong.
Yeah, usually it's Sea of Thieves and nothing else. So
I bet we'll see Sea of Thieves, and I hope we see Donkey Kong.
yet again.
Yeah, he
But-
might be in the background or something.
Yeah, maybe Donkey Kong will be in the Mario sports game as a playable character. Maybe Diddy Kong will be a DLC in a year. I'm working out a new voice that's not Bill Clinton. How do you like it?
It's pretty good. It's pretty it's like good.
Thank you everybody for tuning in to the Conversation Live. Tune in this Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm really sorry because that's 1 a.m. BST, but you stay up late for watch. You gotta get the Xbox showcase. It's gonna be fun. It's the Xbox, such a strong brand, such a strong leadership. I love Xbox. It's gonna be fun. I accidentally hit the theme song by mistake. That's embarrassing.
Oops.
Oops. That's going to go out of the final edit.
Guess we're gonna start the whole episode over.
Okay.
Right.
Hello, and welcome to the Conversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Dustin. Fuck!
This has been a File 2 production.
Qué rico.